My heart and soul whispered in the language of fate, a quiet ache that spoke of what could have been. Yet the conflict between our families, the weight of their history, built walls higher than our will. Still, my heart summons the past, vivid, tender memories that refuse to fade. I see us as we were, laughing, running beneath the sun, our fingers intertwined as if we could hold time still. The intensity of the headache tore me out of sleep. The room was dark, thick with shadows that clung to the walls and pooled in every corner, swallowing the faint slivers of moonlight that dared to enter. As I sat up, a heavy weight pressed against my chest, the kind that felt older than my body, a burden made of memories, regrets, and all that could have been. The pounding in my head deepened, echoing with fragments of the past, laughter, promises, his touch. The pain wasn't just physical, it was the ache of injustice, the sting of betrayal, the confusion of love turned impossible. I clenched my fists, as if holding on could bring him back, as if wishing hard enough might open the door. But he never came. And in that silence, I wondered how long my captors intended to keep me here, and whether he even knew I was still alive. Flashback, the night we tried to run. It had been raining that night, not softly, but in furious, unrelenting sheets, as if the heavens themselves wanted to wash the world clean of our sins. The sound of it was deafening against the tin roofs, a rhythm that matched the pounding of my heart. We had planned everything down to the smallest detail, the back road past the old railway station. The car waiting near the bridge. The letters we left behind, folded carefully and hidden where our families would find them when it was too late to stop us. He held my hand the entire time. His palm was cold, slick with rain, but his grip was steady, determined. Once we crossed the border, he whispered, his voice trembling more from hope than fear, "We'll be free. No more hiding. No more lies." I wanted to believe him. I did. His eyes carried that quiet fire that always made me think he could bend fate itself if he only wanted it badly enough, but fate, that cruel architect, had other plans. The headlights appeared out of nowhere, bright, blinding, slicing through the darkness like truth through a dream. Then came the shouting. My name. His name. The sound of boots splashing through mud. He pulled me forward, shouting for me to run, but the road was slippery, and my dress tangled around my legs. I stumbled. He turned back, always turning back for me, and that was when they caught us. Rough hands. Cold metal. Voices I recognized, voices from his side, from mine. It didn't matter anymore, love had made us both enemies of our own blood. I remember the way he looked at me then, his eyes wide, rain mixing with tears, defiance burning behind them even as they dragged him away. "I'll find you," he shouted. "Do you hear me, Hannah? I'll find you." But his voice was swallowed by the storm. And that was the last time I saw him. The intensity of the headache tore me out of sleep. The room was dark, thick with shadows that clung to the walls and pooled in every corner, swallowing the faint slivers of moonlight that dared to enter. As I sat up, a heavy weight pressed against my chest, the kind that felt older than my body, a burden made of memories, regrets, and all that could have been. The pounding in my head deepened, echoing with fragments of the past, laughter, promises, his touch. The pain wasn't just physical, it was the ache of injustice, the sting of betrayal, the confusion of love turned impossible. I clenched my fists, as if holding on could bring him back, as if wishing hard enough might open the door. But he never came. And in that silence, I wondered how long my captors intended to keep me here, and whether he even knew I was still alive. I closed my eyes, searching for his face in the darkness. I could still see it, those eyes that once looked at me as if the world made sense. He had promised me escape, whispered that love was stronger than fear. And for a while, I believed him. I believed we could defy them all, our families, our traditions, the war that had begun long before we were born. But fate has a cruel way of testing devotion. The night we tried to run, everything changed. The shouts, the gunfire, the betrayal. I still remember his hand slipping from mine as they dragged me away. I screamed his name until my throat went raw, until even the echo of it died in the wind. Now, all I have are fragments, memories that haunt me more than the confinement. The sound of his laughter, the warmth of his palm against mine, the promises we made beneath the dying stars. And every time I close my eyes, I wonder if he broke his promise, or if he's out there, breaking himself trying to keep it. The separation, into the dark. They tore us apart before I could even scream. His voice was still echoing in my ears when someone struck the side of my face. The world spun, rain, mud, headlights, then black. When I woke, everything smelled of damp and iron. My wrists were bound, skin rubbed raw against the coarse rope. The room was small, the air heavy with rot and silence. Somewhere beyond the wall, I heard water dripping, steady, cruel, endless. For the first few days, I thought it was a mistake. That someone would come. That he would find me like he promised. I whispered his name until my throat gave out. I prayed to gods I had stopped believing in. Nothing answered. Then came the questions. They dragged me into a room lit by a single hanging bulb, the kind that hums like a fly trapped in glass. The men who waited there didn't shout. They didn't need to. Their silence was heavier than any weapon. One asked where he was hiding. Another wanted to know who helped us run. When I said nothing, they made sure I remembered the cost of defiance. The first blow was always the hardest, not because of the pain, but because it made everything real. The room spun with each strike. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, determined not to give them the satisfaction of a scream. They called it questioning. I called it the slow unmaking of myself. Nights were worse. The loneliness crawled under my skin, whispering doubts. What if he had escaped without me? What if he'd betrayed me to save himself? The thought felt like another form of torture, quieter, but just as cruel. Sometimes, I thought I heard him, his voice, faint, calling my name through the cracks in the walls. But when I pressed my ear against the cold stone, all I heard was the echo of my own breathing. Days blurred into each other. Pain became routine. Hope became a kind of madness I couldn't afford. Still, even in the darkest hours, a part of me refused to die. The part that remembered his hand in mine, the promise in his eyes, the belief that love, our love, was bigger than fear. And that small, stubborn fragment of faith was all I had left to hold on to. Then came the guard. He wasn't like the others. The rest moved like shadows, silent, mechanical, their faces blank beneath the dim light. But he looked different. Human. His eyes lingered on me longer than they should have. Each time our gazes met, there was a flicker there, hesitation, maybe pity, or something deeper he was trying hard to hide. At first, I thought it was a trick. Another test. They were clever like that, breaking you in ways that didn't always involve pain. So I kept my head down, refused to meet his eyes. But he didn't leave. For days, he came and went, always silent, always glancing in my direction as if weighing a decision only he could make. And then, one night, when the hallway was quiet and the air smelled of wet stone, he finally spoke. "Is there anything I can do to help you?" His voice startled me. It was soft, careful, as if he was afraid the walls might overhear him. For a moment, I just stared, unsure if my mind was playing tricks on me again. The words sounded too kind, too dangerous to be real. "Help me?" I whispered, my throat raw from disuse. "Why?" He looked down, his hand tightening around the keys at his belt. "Because no one deserves this," he said quietly. "Not even the ones they call enemies." Something in his tone made me believe him, even if only a little. I didn't know his name, or if I'd lived long enough to learn it, but in that moment, something shifted. The air between us no longer felt like prison walls, but possibility. Still, I couldn't forget where I was. Hope, in a place like this, could be as lethal as a bullet. So I said nothing more. But when he slipped a small piece of bread through the bars before leaving, I understood. He had chosen a side. The silent pact. After that night, something wordless passed between us. A fragile understanding. He no longer avoided my gaze when he entered, instead, he met it, briefly, but with meaning. It started small. A piece of bread here, a sip of clean water when the others weren't watching. Sometimes, he'd pause by my cell longer than necessary, pretending to check the locks while slipping a folded scrap of paper into the corner of my blanket. Most were blank, a precaution, I realized, but on some, there were words written so faintly they looked like shadows of thoughts. Hold on. They're watching tonight. I heard something about him. Each message was a lifeline, a heartbeat in the silence. I began to answer in the only way I could, by etching tiny marks into the edge of the metal bowl he brought my food in. 1 mark for thank you. 2 for I understand. Sometimes, when I was brave, I added a third, tell me more. Our language was built on risk. The first time his hand brushed mine through the bars, it was an accident, or so we both pretended. His skin was warm, calloused. I hadn't felt human touch in weeks. To be continued in the next episode. The first time his hand brushed mine through the bars, it was an accident, or so we both pretended. His skin was warm, calloused. I hadn't felt human touch in weeks, and the simple contact almost undid me. For a second, I wanted to grab his hand, hold on, beg him not to leave. But I didn't. Survival demanded restraint, and yet, my heart betrayed me every time I heard his footsteps in the corridor. He began to tell me fragments about the outside world, whispers of shifting alliances, of people asking questions. One night, he leaned close and murmured, "Someone's still looking for you. They think you're dead." My breath caught. Who? He hesitated, eyes darting toward the door. I don't know. But it's someone who won't stop. The words lit something inside me, small, trembling, but alive. It could only be him. It had to be. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, tracing the faint scars on my wrists, replaying every moment, every look, every whisper from the guard. Trust was dangerous here, it could kill us both, but for the first time since my capture, I felt something stronger than fear. Hope. The confession. It was past midnight when he came. The corridor was silent, the usual footsteps of the other guards long gone. Only the soft hum of the single bulb above my cell filled the air. When I heard the familiar jingle of keys, I didn't move. I'd learned not to. But when his shadow stretched across the floor, I felt my pulse quicken. He paused by the bars, looking at me like he wasn't supposed to be there. Are you awake? He whispered. I nodded. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder before stepping closer. I saw the strain on his face, the kind that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from a war inside the soul. I shouldn't be here, he said quietly. If they find out I've been talking to you. Then why are you? I interrupted, my voice barely a whisper. He swallowed hard. Because every time I walk past your cell, I see someone who doesn't belong here. Someone who still believes in something. And he exhaled, eyes darkening. I don't know what I believe in anymore. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt fragile, like glass. He stepped closer to the bars, lowering his voice even more. You don't remember me, do you? I frowned. Remember you? He gave a faint, bitter smile. You wouldn't. You were just a child back then. Your father's men raided a village, mine. I was 10. My mother didn't survive. My brother was taken. I joined them years later, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how else to live. His words hit me like a blade drawn slow. So why help me? I whispered. He looked at me, really looked, as if searching for something he'd lost long ago. Because hating your family didn't make me free. And watching them do this to you, he shook his head. It makes me realize I became what I swore I'd destroy. Silence fell again, heavy and human. I can't undo what's been done, he said finally. But maybe I can help you survive it. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded scrap of paper. They're moving prisoners tomorrow night, he murmured. I don't know where. If I can get you on that list, it might be your chance. My heart slammed against my ribs. You'd risk that for me? He met my gaze, steady this time. Maybe I'm not saving you, Hannah. Maybe I'm saving what's left of myself. For a long moment, we just stood there, two broken people bound by choices we didn't make, both daring to believe that redemption could look like kindness. And when he turned to leave, I whispered the words I'd been too afraid to say for weeks. "Thank you." He paused at the door. "Don't thank me yet," he said softly. "Tomorrow might break us both." Then he was gone, leaving only silence, and a spark of hope I couldn't extinguish, no matter how much I tried. The waiting. Dawn came gray and uneasy, the usual rhythm of the compound, footsteps, doors creaking, orders shouted in the distance, was broken. Everything felt off, like the air itself had changed its mind about moving. From the narrow slit of my window, I could see a bird perched on the rusted wire fence, feathers puffed against the chill. It chirped once, a thin, trembling sound that vanished almost as soon as it began. Then silence. Even the wind seemed to be holding its breath. Something was different today. I sensed it in the way the guards moved, brisk, nervous, eyes darting toward shadows as if expecting someone to appear. There were new faces too. Men I hadn't seen before. Their uniforms were cleaner, their boots heavier, their gazes colder. They inspected each cell as they passed, murmuring to one another in clipped tones. When one of them stopped at mine, my heart faltered. He didn't speak, just stared through the bars for a long moment before moving on. I waited until his footsteps faded before I exhaled. The familiar guard, my guard, hadn't come yet. Each passing hour without him tightened the knot in my chest. What if they'd found out? What if last night had been the last time I'd see him alive? I tried to stay still, to keep my breathing quiet. Every small sound seemed magnified, the dripping pipe, the scrape of a boot outside, the faint hum of electricity in the bulb above. I could almost hear the blood rushing in my ears. At noon, a commotion erupted down the corridor. Metal clanging. Raised voices. A door slamming shut. Then, quiet again, the kind of quiet that feels like the moment before lightning strikes. Through the slit of my door, I saw two soldiers wheeling in crates, whispering to each other. One of them carried a clipboard. The transfer list changed, I heard him mutter. "Command wants it done before nightfall." My pulse quickened. Changed? Before nightfall? That wasn't the plan. I stepped closer to the bars, heart pounding so loudly I thought they might hear it. If the list had changed, was I still on it? Or had he failed to put my name down? Outside, the bird was gone. Only the wind remained, restless now, swirling dust against the stone walls like an omen. When the guard finally appeared, it was nearly dusk. His face was pale, eyes sharp with urgency. He didn't speak at first. Just looked at me, then at the soldiers moving in the courtyard beyond. Something had gone terribly wrong. The transfer. Dusk bled into the corridors like smoke, soft at first, then heavy, suffocating. The flickering lights made the walls look alive, breathing in rhythm with my fear. The guard appeared again at my cell. His movements were brisk, eyes darting toward the end of the hall. "They moved the schedule up," he whispered. "We don't have hours anymore, we have minutes." "Am I on the list?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated, just a fraction too long. "I made sure," he said finally. "But if anyone cross-checks, it's over. Do you understand?" I nodded, though I barely did. He unlocked the door with trembling hands. The metallic click sounded louder than thunder. For the first time since my capture, I stepped out of the cell. The air outside smelled of oil, rain, and gunmetal. Every sound, boots on concrete, the rattle of chains, felt amplified, echoing through my bones. He walked a few steps ahead, keeping his tone cold, professional. To anyone watching, I was just another prisoner being escorted to transfer. But when no one was near, he whispered, "When we reach the yard, stay close to the left wall. There's a blind spot by the trucks. Wait for my signal." My palms were slick with sweat. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might give me away. The corridor opened into a wide courtyard washed in the dying light of evening. Trucks idled near the gates, their engines growling impatiently. Soldiers shouted names from a clipboard, dragging prisoners forward one by one. The sound of chains and boots filled the air, rhythmic, merciless. I tried to blend into the line, my head down. My guard, my ally, stood close behind. Every time he moved, I could feel the tension radiating off him. Then, a shout. Stop. The orders have changed again. The officer at the front held up a paper, his voice cutting through the yard. New command, all female detainees remain. Transfer postponed. The line froze. My heart plummeted. The guard's hand brushed against mine, the barest touch, urgent. Don't move, he whispered. But it was too late. Another guard was walking toward us, eyes narrowing. She's not on the manifest, he barked, pointing directly at me. Time fractured. My guard stepped forward, trying to intercept. Clerical error, he said quickly. She was cleared for relocation. By who? The officer snapped. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The air hung thick, charged. Then the officer grabbed my arm. Bring her back inside, he ordered. Now. The guard's jaw tightened. His fingers brushed the holster at his belt, not to draw, but as if his body was deciding something faster than his mind could stop it. Don't, I whispered, barely breathing the word. Please. He blinked, and in that flicker of hesitation, everything shifted. The officer shoved me forward toward the building, shouting for backup. Soldiers turned. Guns lifted. Voices collided into chaos. And through the confusion, the guard's voice, low and fierce, almost swallowed by the noise, Run, Hannah. To be continued in the next episode.